Well, you would shake a breath about that. It ain't there, this.
Thank you.
Like for scheduled things, I was sidetracked. I guess.
This year.
Got 2 minutes. There it is. This is what Sue gave me. This wasn't any other one. For your partner organizations.
I ordered
Chamber that rural development. My question is, do we have a seat at the table on this one?
On the rural development?
Yeah.
That's who we are.
Well, that's Deanne's position. But does she represent them on the board, or do we represent them on this one here?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a seat at the board of supervisors on this board,
as supervisors.
or as a
I'm the
supporter?
chair. I'm the chair of M-Card, so we have a seat.
Okay, we have. That was my question.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be the chair all the time.
No,
you know, like
no.
Or the
But
next supervisor.
what I'm saying is,
So if we lose a chair or vice chair, we lose a spot.
so
Not yet. Not right now. If the supervisor isn't the chair of that organization, you don't have a seat. But they're talking about adding county officials or whatever.
well.
We should talk about this.
Yeah, well, that was my, I didn't, in the other one, it wasn't mentioned in there, the one I saw. But Sue, this one here, I hadn't seen, so maybe I did and I forgot about it. Okay.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First thing we need to do is to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Supported.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comments. Anybody from the public wish to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Need to approve the minutes from July 17th.
Move to approve.
Support.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from July 17th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Need to approve July bills.
Motion to approve.
Supported.
Moved and seconded to approve the July bills. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Need to accept the fourth quarter semi-annual and annual reports from the treasurer.
Move to approve.
Support.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have a public hearing scheduled for 9:15, but we can't do that yet. We can skip down and do a couple of other things maybe. Don't want to get into number 7 yet. I think that one might take a while.
You do courthouse updates, probably take 10 minutes.
Troy's not here though.
Yeah, Troy's right there.
There he is.
His
Come on,
smiling,
Troy.
his smiling face is behind the hair. He's there.
But I'm-
On 10 minutes for you. We got first, I guess, is we've been working a year and a half on these electronic locks for the doors. Security team met on July 27th and recommended that we go ahead with that project, I guess. I'd sent you the figures, I don't know if you want me to go through them or.
I think hadn't we approved to go with this company some time ago, and now we have the final numbers, and that's what the committee wants approved.
The final for this building and the law center was $57,928.35. And then there's like $168 or $64 monthly fee. And that's just for web hosting all of our doors. That's how they upgrade all that, anything technological.
It's how they keep it current, I guess. So. We also talked about where the funds were coming from. There's a courthouse security fund, and Sue's been doing a little research, and I know Russ wasn't here last year when we talked about this. Sheriff DeGeest had agreed that it would come out of this fund, but the fund was set up on a 60-40 basis. And I don't know if we've necessarily been following that over the years too much, but Paul had agreed at that time we just take it out of that fund without the designation of 60-40, because that's what we had talked about. Now, if you have a major objection, Russ, I guess.
No, I don't.
Okay. And then.
We may need to have a conversation down the road about
Yeah.
that particular fund.
Yeah.
No, not for this issue right now.
Okay, and so that's where that money's coming from. The fund has enough money in it, more than enough to cover this by quite a bit, so we just need to approve and they can get started on these doors, which we've talked about for quite a while, I guess. I'd move to approve the contract and sign the contract with this company.
Strauss.
There you
I'll
go.
say the motion.
Approve. Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Update on the courthouse heating and cooling issues.
And I came to a board meeting a while back on that also, and we decided to get some rough estimates on heating and cooling this since the boilers are getting old. Did that, and Cunningham's gave me a price. They said right now we have 47 tons of cooling, and we might get up to 92 since we don't cool a lot of areas. And their quote on that was $775,000. That's pretty. Tom told me that's still pretty rough. Until they get an engineer in here and see what we really need. And then I did the same thing with Wingers out of Tumwa. And they just kind of gave me some dollars per ton, and they went off 50 tons, and it was 550,000. So it's probably pretty close between the two. I didn't know if you guys wanted me to go ahead and get some better quotes or put it off for a while. Or Because then you get into spending a little money on getting engineering.
We've got an old heating system. I guess we have been having little pipe problems once in a while and leaking, and whether we do away with the boilers or not, I guess that's kind of what's prompted this. And
Tom kind of indicated in his email that everybody's doing away with steam and at least going to hot water. He said only the hospital and the Central United Methodist still have steam.
so that's kind of what prompted this rough estimate stuff, and just for information, I guess, this morning.
And we've got some leaks on our floors. Have to deal with sometime either now or hopefully get through another year. So, I don't know what. In the system we have now, we've got steam coming through our floors, so there's a hole in the pipe someplace.
So, I don't really have anything else right now, unless you do.
I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to update you on that part, I guess. Then the third thing is the crack out front, the concrete. We talked about it. Dave was going to have somebody grind that out. And last time I talked to him, he said he didn't really want to, because I don't know much about concrete. When you get through the concrete layer or something, get into the rocks, and it deteriorates really fast. But I know we've had 2 people trip out there. It's right down the main steps, going north and south, and it goes almost all the way to the bank, so it's pretty big.
Kind of raised up.
Last time I measured it was 3/8, and it might be more than that now. I don't know. I mean, it's either grind it, try it, or need to take out that section of concrete, I suppose, or do that.
You think that, well, these local cement guys grind that off, or?
That's what I guess I'd try it first.
Yeah. See if we can smooth that up a little bit. I don't know.
I think it's worth a shot.
Okay.
If you want to ground that out of the EHS, it didn't cost a lot of money to do that. This is a lot farther, but it's also outside, so,
Yeah.
you know, they don't have to have plastic and stuff.
Tear up the carpet.
Yeah.
Just get a concrete person to do it. I don't think we necessarily want to see bids. If you just find somebody that you've worked with.
I'll probably use the same company. Did a good job at DHS, and like I said, that was inside, so.
Yeah, just use it. Use
Okay.
them again. They'll do it.
I'll check that out.
Okay.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks.
Okay. The rest of these might take a little while.
Yeah.
Got about 5 minutes yet.
I told this variance people about 10 o'clock because I figured this other stuff would take quite a while. So I guess they could have been here, but we'll sit all morning. Okay.
Number 10, take 5 minutes.
Hmm?
Number 10, take 5 minutes.
Try it. Gonna try number 10, the MOU. Consider support memorandum of understanding and business plan for Mahaska Development Partners. And so right now the structure of the Chamber, MCARD, MCDG, and Main Street, they're 4 separate entities that run under their own budget. They have their own funds, they have their own boards, and they make decisions basically for their area of expertise. Deanne works half-time for MCARD and half-time for the Chamber of Commerce. And basically what this MOU lays out, there was an effort or a desire to pool and to try to pool funds and try to get all of the organizations together. There's some people that didn't like that and resisted it, and so the MOU basically lays out a new format for how they will conduct business. Basically just means that the chair of each of the organizations and a designee of the board, it doesn't have to be the vice president, but it can be the vice president, would be designated to a board that would meet quarterly. There's there'd be 8 people on the board, and that would be the general makeup of everybody in that.
When you say the board, you mean the board of each of these entities?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the board of M-Card, the board of Main Street, the board of the
Okay.
Chamber and MCDG, they would all designate their chair as well as another designee on there.
From that.
To be 2, each board would have 2 representatives on there to represent. They would meet quarterly. They would govern by consensus. And for, I think, as far as major changes in structure, should they ever want to dissolve their boards and come together, I think that would still have to be done at the board level. One of the things that board could talk about in the first meeting is adding additional members to that board. They want to keep it as small as possible, but there's been talk about appointing governing seats, one for the city council and for the board of supervisors, based off of the contributions that we give to them every year, as well as the city.
The city has one of these to approve also?
Yes.
Would that be correct? Okay.
Yep. So basically, this sets up the structure to say we will meet, as far as the M-Card board, the 2 designees from M-Card, that we would meet on a quarterly basis with the other organizations, the leadership of the other organizations, and discuss what each board is doing moving forward. Some of the resistance came from people in the rural areas that would like, you know, the other incorporated towns that would like to maintain and have the piece that they get from M-Card, because DN does a lot for them with writing their grants and trying to keep the cities moving forward with new projects and those kind of things. So we have the M-Card board. If they ever dissolved, they wouldn't have a forum where all of them got together, all of the city managers, or not the city managers,
Mayors.
the mayors and all them get together and discuss their projects and how to get them funded. So they'd like to keep that type of a format going, and this doesn't do anything to change that. So.
Right. Okay. That's what I understood. I'll make a motion to approve this memorandum of understanding.
Okay, I'll second it.
For discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
There you go. Now what's that?
Okay, now we can open, yep, we're good. Open the public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Support.
Been moved and seconded to go into public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're in public hearing. We're in public hearing to discuss proposal to the issue of general obligation, local option sales tax bonds. Back in our general election ballot, we had a initiative to fund out of our local option sales tax. The language read that some of this money would be used for the Environmental Learning Center, which has broken ground, and road projects. We've been working with Jeff Heil from Northland Securities on working on getting a bond rating and to allocate, not allocate, but set forward $4.955 million for the environmental learning project, or environmental learning center project, as well as any road projects that may come up that we would need kind of some emergency funding for. So, if anybody's here that wish to speak to that, certainly able to do so at this time. Written.
We have not received any written comments, no.
Okay. Guess we need to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we need to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve resolution number 2017-17.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss the radio system and bonding. Chair of the EMA, Sheriff Van Rennerham and Stephen Nadel. Hope I said that right.
Van Rennerham or Nagel?
No, Nadel. Nadel. So Nadel.
Morning.
Thank you guys for hearing us. I'm here wearing a different hat today, not as the sheriff, but as the chairman of the EMA Commission. The EMA Commission has requested that I come before you and bring up the topic and ask for your consideration. Trying not to put the cart ahead of the horse here, we're trying to have some of our ducks in a row, and with regard to the radio infrastructure that we've been working on. We're coming today to see if there's any option or availability, or if you folks would be willing to allow us down the road, in the event we can agree on a radio system, if you will allow us to bond through you, so to speak. It's my understanding, and Steve is a bonding attorney. Also here is Carl Salmons, and Jamie's here also if we have questions for them. We're wanting to know if you folks down the road, if we can agree on a radio system, we'll bond for the system, and then through a 2080 agreement between you folks and our commission, we pay the bond back. That's what we're here for today.
Would you like me to jump in with a little commentary, or do you have some questions first?
I got some questions. I don't know when I'm going to ask them, I guess.
Might help with a little background. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Okay. Steve Nadel from the Allers Law Firm in Des Moines. I'm a bond counsel attorney. I got involved in this a couple weeks ago. Carl called me. Carl is serving as general counsel for the E911 Service Board. And it's probably my fault, but I was under the initial impression that there was general agreement between the parties that the county would be issuing general obligation bonds for the project. Usually when we are asked to be bond counsel, we represent the issuer of the bonds. I thought that the parties were beyond these early discussions. So I came down to a meeting at the service board, learned that we're a little prior to that stage. So at this point, I'm here on the service board's bill. If this goes forward, and I'm gonna talk to you about the bonding options. I'm going to tell you that I think that it's best if the county or the city of Oskaloosa, for that matter, but one of the governmental bodies issue general obligation bonds, and I'll explain why. If the county's going to do that, I see here that you've got another bond issue coming up, which means that you're using other bond counsel, and that's totally your choice. You can use your regular bond counsel. Since if we're involved and E911's paying us, we could do it, I could do that, but still representing the county, but E911 would be paying the bill for that. That's all up to you, okay? So I could tell you my thoughts today, and then that may be the end of my role in all of this if you go forward using the bond counsel that you're using on this other financing, and that's perfectly fine. That's all within your prerogative. And I see Jeff Hiles here, and Jeff may actually have some thoughts on this too. There is an issue that we're going to want to talk about, which is the bank qualification issue, because that's a $10 million bond issuance annual calendar year limit. It doesn't mean you can't issue more bonds than that, but it can have a slightly different cost of capital. It can affect the interest rate. If a governmental body issues more than $10 million of tax-exempt bonds in a calendar year, you cannot designate them as bank qualification or bank qualified bonds. Bank qualification is desirable to the lenders or the purchasers of the bonds because they get a tax deduction on some of their carrying cost of capital, which causes them to usually pass along a little bit lower interest rate. Jeff is the guy who advises on interest rates. That's really his bailiwick, not mine. He can talk more specifically about that. So it's fortuitous that he's here, but that's an issue. Now that can be dealt with either by keeping all of the bond issue. Well, first, you don't have to stick within the 10 million. You can issue more than 10 million a year. It just has that effect. You can also, and it's not uncommon, to try to plan the bond issuances to stay within $10 million, either by finding out more of the cost of the communication system, making sure that the amount's going to be within 10 million, or depending on when the money is needed, issue one series of bonds this year and then another one next year, so that within each calendar year you can plan to keep within $10 million. Or the county could issue part, and one or more of the cities involved in the 911 Service Board could issue bonds for the remainder. So there are ways to carve it up to keep within the $10 million limit if that's something that you want to do. And again, that's probably the most that you would need from me on that, and Jeff would be the one to talk about the actual monetary effect of bank qualification or not bank qualification. So leaving that aside, I think the primary issue for all the parties involved, and I kind of say this agnostically as to who the client is or will be, is that it's beneficial to everybody if everybody collectively figures out how you want to go about this. You're all in the same ball of wax with regard to the communication system serving the county, and figuring out what is the lowest cost of capital will be a benefit to all members of the service board, which includes the county as well as all of the cities. So however you get about getting to that end spot, coming to some understanding of how to most efficiently and effectively finance a communication system, if there's a consensus that the communication system is needed, would be beneficial to all involved, including the county. So then the question becomes, how do you go about financing this type of infrastructure? I will start by saying that the financing section of the Iowa Code for counties defines this type of a communication system as an essential county purpose, meaning that the county can issue GO bonds with the hearing process and not through an election. As a general obligation bond, if you do that, there is a different security source than the bonds you've just been talking about that were the other bonds in your hearing today. So they could not be commingled in a single bond issue. It would be a separate general obligation bond issue if you did that. A hearing would be required procedurally beforehand. The E911 statute of the Iowa Code does have provisions which provide for the option of the Iowa Finance Authority issuing bonds for this type of infrastructure. I'm advising, and again, to the extent, again, not knowing quite who I'm representing if this goes forward at this point, I don't think it's wise to go down that path, more for pragmatic reasons than anything else. First, I'm not positive we can get there from a legal perspective because the statute does not really set forth a procedural process for the E911 Service Board to borrow the money in that process, okay? Because what the legal process would be, the Iowa Finance Authority would issue bonds, and then would loan that money to the E911 Service Board. That's two different financings. The Iowa Finance Authority has its own legal procedures that are clear for borrowing money generally. But the procedural process for the E911 board to borrow in this pass-through structure is not well defined. So as a result, I don't know that we can get there from a legal perspective. It has been done in the past, but that was probably before the code was amended to make this type of financing for communication systems an essential county purpose. On the way here, I actually spoke with a couple people at the Iowa Finance Authority to find out what, if anything, they are doing on these types of issuances. And both people I spoke with said it's been years since they have financed any of these, and they think it's because they've not seen anything since the statute was amended to enable counties to do this. And I can tell you I've represented 2 other counties who have issued bonds for E911 projects, and we had slightly different methodologies in each of them to kind of tie the E911 group into paying back the bonds. That's the other issue everybody wants to agree to. Who's going to issue the bonds and who's going to pay the debt service on the bonds? If you do issue GO bonds, regardless of who is paying the debt service by agreement within all of the players, general obligation bonds are secured legally by the debt service levy, and the county would be obligated to levy the taxes in any budgetary year when you don't have enough money from the planned source to pay the debt service. So whatever plans and agreements you have in place for paying the debt service, understand that you would be using that money to abate the levy, but in any year if that comes short, the county would still be obligated to levy the necessary taxes and then kind of recoup that money down the road from the E911 Service Board if that's how the parties set it up. So if we were to do this process through the Iowa Finance Authority, that gets to be more complex and more costly because they issue bonds and then with their own lawyers involved, and it's a specific bond issue for this purpose. It's not one of their revolving loan funds where they've got a bigger bond that then funds a loan program. So they'd have a specific bond issue, then the money gets loaned to the service board. It would be secured by probably revenues of the service board, which are the annual or the $1 service charge, or possibly some other sources. That's again something that Jeff would look at if he were involved, trying to figure out the monetary cash flow of the service board and how they would pay for it and secure it. His role in financings gets to be more on the structuring side of financings. What revenue source to use to secure, over how long to pay the bonds back, will the cash flow be sufficient to pay the bonds, all of that. As bond counsel, we look at state law authority to issue bonds, federal tax law for tax exemption, and in some cases we get involved on some security law side of things, depending on if we're retained as disclosure counsel, which is less common but becoming more common in recent years. To have a disclosure counsel. So that's the bond counsel role. But ultimately, a decision needs to be made whether to go with general obligation bonds, because that's going to be the most efficient and easiest way probably, and then figure out how to kind of pass on the obligation to pay to the 911 Service Board if that would be the board's desire. The way I've done that in the past, one county just had a memorandum of understanding. How legally binding that is might be questionable, but it's kind of a confirmation of everybody's intent. Another one did some type of a lease agreement, or you could all go in the understanding that this is just, you should have some written agreement, or you could have something more formal, but then it gets to be a little more questionable of how binding it is because of the uncertainty of the procedure for the E911 Service Board to pay. Now, you can tighten up the 28E agreements. You can have one between the county and E911 Service Board. The E911 Service Board can button up its 28E a little broader and make sure that all of its members understand they're obligated annually in the budgetary process for a pro rata share of the cost, and each one of them has to make sure they've got the money. You can have agreements by all of the communities that are members. How far you go to button all that up is a matter of discretion and how legally binding you want things to be. Again, I've had some counties where they were comfortable with a little less formal process, and it's perfectly fine to do something a little more binding. That's all internal preference. But ultimately, that is backdrop to issuance of GO bonds, if the county were to do that, which again, I think is the most effective way. Whether it's the county or one of the member cities, the issue there likely would fall into borrowing capacity. Under the Iowa Constitution, municipal entities are limited to 5% of the property tax valuation. I've not looked at the borrowing capacity of the county. Typically, counties have substantial borrowing capacity and typically do not issue a substantial amount of bonds and usually have very substantial room within their borrowing capacity. Cities, because of their size, have lower property tax valuations overall than the county, and the smaller the community goes, the smaller their 5% of the property tax valuations is, and they've got a much lower property tax valuations within their jurisdictional area, and consequently a much lower borrowing capacity under the Iowa Code. So would one of the larger cities possibly have sufficient borrowing capacity? I've not checked. It's possible. That might eat up quite a bit of their borrowing capacity. If they have outstanding bonds, it could be too much, or it could eat up any capacity that's necessary for emergencies down the road. So I think all of those factors probably factor into why it's pretty common, I think, for a county board to issue bonds for an E911 infrastructure project. But I'm trying to point out that you end up there more often than not for both pragmatic and legal reasons, and not because it's absolutely legally necessary. It could be where each member issues bonds for their own pro rata share. That'd be perfectly fine. It would also be very inefficient, and as bond counsel, I'd say you do not, I mean, collectively, the group would not want to pay us or other bond counsel, 10 times to issue 10 series of bonds. That would be pretty silly. So consolidating it with one bond issue or two bond issues to structure around bank qualification would be the most efficient way. So that's a lot of discussion about the legal backdrop of it all. It's really not my place to get into the local issues of is the infrastructure needed, or how the parties make the decision of who's going to issue the bonds, or how firmly the issuer of the bonds wants to bind up all the players into the repayment process. I can just offer input on how to go about achieving those goals once there's been some local decision making.
How much money do you think we're talking right now?
We won't know until we get the RFPs back. RFPs have not even been sent out yet. There's been discussion over the past year on the two different committee meetings, anywhere from 1.9 up to 9 million. We have no idea until we get the RFPs back from any company that may want to bid on it.
One thing relevant to this bank qualification issue, we're sitting here in August, RFPs aren't out yet. Would construction be planned to be completed in this calendar year, or would construction really be next year?
I don't know, Jamie, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it would take 2 years. 18 months usually to build a system out. We're definitely looking next fiscal. I think the main question is the county willing to do the bonding? Granted, we don't know what the total is at this point. I think we just need to have that conversation. A lot of those bidders, they say on average $100,000 they put in with engineers and the studies and stuff that take place, and they want to know that this is something you're truly going to move forward with down the road, so that they can actually put something together.
So the bank qualification issue is per calendar year, not fiscal year. And based on what we've just heard, there would be substantial monetary expenditures for the project in the 2018 calendar year, which would allow for this type of maybe 2-series structuring to keep within the bank qualification this year, and then depending on what the county's bond issuance plans are for next year, you would then try to squeeze in below 10 million there as well. I presume Jeff would suggest for interest rate purposes being good to stay within bank qualification.
We come to you folks because this is the cheapest way, interest rate wise. Through discussion with the 2 attorneys, the last EMA board meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about saving the taxpayers money. And the option is, the option of bonding through you folks is the cheapest route to go for the taxpayers. I know there's a lot of questions. I know we're talking about a very large sum of money. We're anticipating a large sum of money. Even if it's at the very lowest end, 1.9 million is a lot of money to me anyway. I understand when you spread it out amongst all the citizens it may not be, but that's a lot of money. And I don't know, we had a discussion about the different types of bonds the last meeting. General obligation bonds versus utility bonds. What do you know, Steve, the difference in just interest rate difference between the 2 types?
So what the sheriff is talking about is general obligations versus a revenue bond. And again, this is Jeff's bailiwick. It's good that he's here if you've got questions on this. Usually a general obligation bond carries a lower interest rate than a revenue bond because of the risk associated with the revenue collection or the payments under those bonds. General obligation bonds are deemed to be a lower risk typically in the marketplace. If we went through this Iowa Finance Authority route, that would be some type of a revenue bond, and that's the point, is that those typically carry a larger interest rate, and of course on a multi-million-dollar project the interest is more substantial than it would be on a very small project. So you've got the interest rate cost GO versus some type of revenue. I say some type because again, until we looked at it more closely, I don't know whether a revenue bond, if it's even possible for the reasons I previously mentioned, but I don't know whether that would be secured by the special levy that they can do or by the dollar surcharge collections, but in some fashion cobbling together a revenue source to secure those bonds, as well as through the Iowa Finance Authority if it could be done. I think the cost of issuance because of the complexity would be higher as well, but the interest rate I'm speculating would be a much more substantial cost issue than complexity of legal fees and structure for the issuance of bonds.
So are you hoping to come here and get a contract that says, yes, we'll bond up to $10 million? I mean, what's the desire of the Emergency Management Commission?
I guess what we came here for is to get a commitment, not on a price, because we don't even have any idea what a price is now. We have a deadline come up in February. What was that deadline, Jamie?
We're looking at, if we can get the idea of what this is going to cost, and granted, if it does go into next fiscal year, we might have some room as far as, we just need to make sure that if the Emergency Management Commission is the one paying the debt service, that we put that into the budget so that we can start making those payments. And I guess we'd have to see what the time frame is of that. Do we need to make that by the next February date, or
your
can it be the
budget,
next fiscal
your budget
year?
deadline's in February, though, correct?
February 28th, we'll have that.
Well, I understand at some point this will probably have to be bonded. and I understand that we should do the cheapest route. I guess if I vote to approve this, am I just giving you guys an open check and then you guys go do what you want? I mean, I'm a little dragging my feet on that part of it.
Right. I really wish we were farther ahead in the project. I wish we had the RFPs back. I wish we had a decision what company we're going with.
I think in response to your question, it sounds like one thing you're wanting to know is there going to be enough revenue through E911 to be able to pay the debt service on the bonds? I mean, I suspect that your question about the amount involves a question of, is it going to be able to be paid back? Not through the property tax levy, but through E911 Service Board. And that's something where if the county's issuing the bonds and if the county is wanting E911 to pay the debt service, the county should be asking E911 to demonstrate its ability to pay that debt service, and that either the county having Jeff assist with that, or E911 retaining Jeff or somebody like Jeff to help with that, to demonstrate the cash flow to pay the debt service, might be meaningful to the county, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
We understand that you're not committing to up to $9,000 on bond. We understand that. We understand that we're going to have to come back back before you folks and say, okay, this is the system we've agreed on, or that we're wanting to go with. We understand we're going to have to come back to you for a specific amount, whether it be 3.9 million or 2.4 million. We understand that. What we're looking for is, we want to know, are you guys sitting here saying you are not bonding through us? Because then we have to get started on our other options. Or if you guys are willing to sit down with us down the road when we get our final numbers in place.
So who has the final say on this, on the system? I guess, is that you guys have the final say, or the
EMA,
commission, or the
EMA commission,
or the committee that's working on this?
No,
or
the communications committee only makes recommendations to the EMA commission, is my understanding. And then it would be a vote amongst the 13 members. So.
Well, you know, like I said, I'm at some point it's got to be bonded, and to do justice to the taxpayers, you're going to have to go the cheapest route you can, and I understand that also. But I think there's still some questions out there about which way you guys are going to go with things, and how this money's going to, what the cost is going to be. That's a wide open thing.
Is there a mechanism by which it would be put up for a public vote?
Well, as an essential, I mean, the legal process for it would be the hearing process. It would be quite unconventional to go hold an election on something that is an essential county purpose. I've actually never had the question posed. I would say you're going to want to follow, if you do it, you would want to follow the essential county purpose process so that nobody can claim you've not followed it.
I need to ask a different question. Can somebody petition to have a public vote for this?
With an ECP, typically not.
That was my question.
Yeah, right, okay. Yep.
Okay. So somebody from the public, on other issues like this, there's a provision in the statute that allows for them to petition, have a certain number of signatures to hold a...
Yeah, right. I can double check that if you've got questions for the sheriff for just a minute. It'll take me just a minute on the phone to find that code section. I can tell you for sure.
Okay.
But if that's meaningful, I'd be glad to do that.
Okay. The other question is, what is the point of the 911 board paying the bond? I mean, you pay your budget through our county, right?
Jamie, what did you have in mind as far as the revenue source?
It would be
An
the
increase in
Emergency
levy?
Management Commission.
What's that?
It'd be the Emergency Management Commission. So the commission certifies their budget, and basically sets their levy. So if the thought was, if the Board of Supervisors didn't want to put that in their budget, the Emergency Management Commission, because it is made up of the elected officials, all the mayors of the incorporated city, the Board of Supervisor, and the sheriff, that as that group, they could decide to make those payments back to the Board of Supervisors. And Mr. Dolan, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the Emergency Management Commission certifies their budget. We come to the Board of Supervisors and say, we want our levy rate at, I'm just throwing a number out there, $1.30, and that's what you guys give us. So, I mean, you could essentially just take that and then levy every year and be done with it, or the Emergency Management could put it in their budget as a line item and give it back to the county.
So at some point, somebody, let's just say that the 911 board is not able to pay. They're not able to pay the bond back. Who pays for it?
Well, we need to take the 911 board out of it. It's the Emergency Management Commission.
Okay.
They would certify their budget at the levy rate with enough to cover that.
To cover
Okay.
the bond.
Right.
Yeah.
The 911 commission,
Emergency
if,
Management has a little bit more, like you guys can only levy so much in your different, what are they called, so your different funds. Yeah. So with the Emergency Management, you do have the special levy route, there's some other options there, so you're not capping yourself or limiting yourself.
But ultimately, it still comes back to taxpayer, either way.
All comes from the taxpayer, all through the
I
county.
mean,
All goes
Yes.
off the property tax. I mean, it all goes back to the property
Yeah,
tax.
so,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Unless they choose to go per capita, then it'd be, but it still comes out of the property tax.
It still comes out of property.
I guess,
Are you going to say something, Mr. Solomons?
Well, yeah, let me chime in here for a second. This, like the chair? Mr. I can speak up. I think in approaching this, there's some misapprehension. The Emergency Management Commission, my clients, I represent it, is a separate municipal corporation. And that separate municipal corporation has been endowed by the legislature with a budget levy, tax levy. So for example, if bonding council here convinces you that we can reduce the cost to the taxpayer by use of your bond capacity, then what happens is, by law, my Emergency Management Commission has the power to levy its own share of the property tax load to pay that debt back. That would result in the savings to the taxpayer I think we all contemplate. But the thing I want to get across to you is we are talking totally about a different municipal corporation, the EMC. It's like a city, it's like a county, but it's a municipal corporation with its own powers and duties and responsibilities. That's what we're talking about here.
the increased levy is what would be used to pay back the bonds.
Questions?
These are my concerns. I don't have an issue with bonding for it. We need a different system. Like, what we have is struggling. My question is the taxpayer going to get the best cost-effective coverage for our county that works best for our county?
That's the commission's goal.
We weren't even looking at one of the systems when I got on board. In fact, this first meeting in January, I went to Knoxville to even learn about the ISIC board option. And I was late for a meeting. But we had a state senator show up at our supervisor saying, who do we have to call in this county? Because the EMA is not calling back to even learn about the system. The EMA was here in May. We talked about quite a few things. We talked about the SARA system, and it was all good. And they had some concerns about the ISIC board system, the user fees. That was brought up in the listening. It was in the paper. The ISIC board came down the following meeting and had to correct that. Question was, we don't know if it's going to work. I think that was proven with Mr. Lampy talking 65 miles away on his portable, the system will work. They weren't really sure if anybody was on it yet. And now we've got the control issue again. I mean, all these things, what we talked about in our board, and resolving through our board, is now going through the same issues they're still going through the commission, starting to go through the commission, the Emergency Management Commission. Just making calls on my own time, trying to figure all this out. Raycom, and all this information, all these talking points come from Raycom. They're not from knowledge we've learned on our own. It's Raycom, when they came down, they're the ones who went through and said all this. So when Raycom says, watch out for this thing, watch out for the user fees over here, their other hand is over here, and they call them monthly access fees. So they're charging monthly access fees for phones if you go their route. I called Polk County and they verified that. We brought up Dallas County in our meeting. The saying was, well, it didn't work, they had to build it out more. They started, I called Terry, that's their 911 dispatcher, or not their dispatcher, the communications man for the county. And I got a totally different report, and went back and forth with Jamie where the source was. I finally came out, that was Raycom as well. The sheriff and I was invited to go look at it to verify that it's working. Actually, it was turned on in January. And now so they're using it. The fire and all those emergency medical service will be on in September. In fact, it was designed, started 3 years ago. They didn't design it to be around with the state system. But they dropped their core. They didn't want to buy the $1 million core, so they're attached to the state system now. With no state towers even being used, their own system is producing 97.5% global in-hit coverage. So I mean, that was another system on the statewide system is what they call the Westcom. Westcom is made up of many cities that went together to make one dispatch center. It's West Des Moines Police, Clive Police, Norwalk Police, Waukee Police, Urbandale Police, West Des Moines Fire, West Des Moines Emergency Medical Services, Clive Fire, Norwalk Fire, Urbandale Fire, Waukee Fire. They all went together to make one dispatch center. That's what they call Westcom. They've been on the ISIX platform for roughly a year now. They have four sites. I talked to Brad there, and he said it's a win-win for them and the state both working together. They use 3-watt radios, and they're talking up to 35 miles away from their towers on their portables. Sorry. Talked to Dallas County, talked to Polk County. Warren County is starting to go through the same process we are. Woodbury County, they're on the state platform system. That's Sioux City. They said it's a win-win. My concern is, are we actually going to look at all the options to get the best thing for our people? And so,
If I can ask, is there something that leads you to believe that we're not looking at the state system? Because the EMA Commission has not made a decision on which system they're wanting to go with at this point.
yeah, I know Mr. Sullivan came down the first meeting and he said Mr. Lampy had to come down and proselytize the system. I did not take that as proselytizing. They read in the paper they weren't sure if it was going to work, talk about user fees. I think that come down and address the issues. Now the last issue, they talked about control again. The ISIX board is going to be control. I've talked to these users about control, and they said control, it's a win-win. They don't touch my infrastructure. What we invest in, we own, we take care of ourselves, they have no right to. And so now we're starting to go through the same things we did here. The same verbiage here is also being the same verbiage at the commission. And so, I checked, I informed you that what was said about Dallas County in a boardroom was separate, it was totally different. I told Jamie something totally different. I emailed Terry Friday morning in Dallas County. I said, has anybody else contacted you from Mahaska County to verify? He said nobody's contacted him as of yet. So yeah, I am kind of concerned that we share misinformation, and now we find out things are different. Nobody's following up on it and come back and say, you know what, it was inaccurate. This is the proper information.
There's been no decision, Mark, you're at those meetings, there's been no decision what system to go with at this point. Mark, are you saying you would only support a bond issue if we go with the ISIC system?
No, my concern is,
And the EMA Commission needs to be looking at all the options.
I want the best economic coverage our county can get. I want the best bang for the buck.
That's what I want. I think that's what everybody on the EMA board wants, or commission wants. I would love to come in here, whether it be 2 months, 3 months from now, and have a very low figure for you guys. Yes, the May meeting, there was a lot of discussion right up in this area about concerns. I have concerns with the other system we're talking about. And we don't know. There could be a third option coming here. We won't know until we get the RFP out and get those back.
I'm willing to work. I don't have a problem working with it, but I just want to make sure. There's a lot of things been said that have not been followed up. I mean, we're talking about 2 different municipalities. There has to be some trust built someplace now too, because what was previously said is not coming to fruition. And now we're.
These need to be brought up in the EMA Commission meeting, Mark, as well as here.
And I do want to follow up, because the commission and the Board of Supervisors did make up an oral agreement on May 22.
On the
I think it was.
pay for the RFP.
Pay for why the county paid for the RFP, why we paid this study. This is, the county is supposed to have the final say. He was going to do the work.
But I don't think that's an option at this point as far as you folks. In that meeting, if I'm remembering the meeting correctly, that meeting, my recommendation was, you folks buy it, you folks own it. That is not an option. We've learned that through Mr. Sammons now. By code, that's not an option. Am I correct in that?
I think you're essentially correct, because the law casts the obligation of building a radio system, not so much with the county government anymore, but with the specialized organization of the EMC, the separate legal entity.
Which is a municipality.
Which is a municipality with its own bonding power and the rest of that. Let me chime in and say, I think that quite a bit overstated to say that we won't go through the process. The process is, as everybody says, get the best bang for the buck. The RFP process represents that. We've got feedback from all of the users, the end users of this radio system. We will, when the RFP is let, seek the best qualified bidders at the lowest possible price. In the end, your Emergency Management Commission as a municipality is a fiduciary of public money, just like you folks are. We are responsible for that because we are government ourselves. So I say to you, quite honestly, we don't know where this process is going to take us yet, because the bids haven't been let. We don't know who's going to bid. We don't know what the bid criteria are even yet. Those have got to be formulated so that we have a clean bidding process. But at the end of the day, the money that comes in will be paid back through the tax levy or the other mechanisms of the Iowa Code if your bonding power is there to allow us to reduce the cost. That's the short of it.
Typically with,
Mr. Solomon, I have talked to Jim about that. And currently, the county does own the current tower and equipment and stuff. He didn't see an issue if we wanted to, if the two groups wanted to just to go ahead with that contract, but it needs to be approved by the commission and not be. Basically, the reason you got called by Mr. Blomern is because basically the EMA director was making decisions with just that ad hoc committee. And that's why we got Jim involved, and he called you to try and get the commission involved. So if I'm understanding Jim right, that agreement could be fine. You just have to make a contract that states all that.
I'm sorry, what agreement are you talking about?
The one we made orally in May 22 between the commission director and the board here.
Well, I don't know if there was a resolution passed.
No, it was just all oral.
Okay, well, so, in other words, what we're really talking about now is something oral too. You can't commit to us. We don't have numbers for you. We just are looking for a signal of acceptance, of positive direction, if you will, that your bonding capacity can be used to the benefit of this separate municipal corporation, to the benefit of all taxpayers. And we'll get through this process together. That's the only thing I can say.
So you're not asking for a 2080 now saying we'll bond up to $10 million?
No, sir.
No questions asked?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Because we don't know.
No, that's
what the
fine,
cost
'cause I just want to
of
make sure,
the
because
infrastructure
according to state law on the 2080, this municipality is responsible for county communications. This municipality is responsible for the bonding authority. And so we've got the keys to the bonding authority, you've got the keys to the communication system, we've just got to figure it out together, but
And then we have an expert here sitting to my left, because I don't do this kind of work, who is going to assure that it's done quite properly.
no, that's what I'm saying though, because I think that this board is going to need assurance that things were done well and the county taxpayers getting the best bang for their buck before we say, yes, have at it.
We'll give that to you.
I think that's what I would like to see.
Okay. Well, we're there. We're either, you know, if we say no, you can still bond it. Just costs a little more money.
A little more?
Well, that's essentially what we're talking about. So,
And that's a maybe. You may remember I had some discussion about the silence of a procedural process, so I've not reached the conclusion that they can issue separately. Obviously, if you say no, then we'd have to go look at that possibility. It's probably fair to the overall discussion. You're asking very pointed questions about the process for determining the system. So if it is, let's talk about the RFP. So think about Chapter 26 bid letting law requirements for construction of a public improvement project would require an Iowa licensed engineer to draft plans and specs, and then you put that out to bid. And then whoever can meet those plans and specs would bid on that. And whether one of the vendors or multiple vendors can meet that just depends. Plans and specs cannot be drafted so specifically as to be a single vendor, right? You can't say we only want vendors with blue logos or whose system is named this. But if it's something that is a general specification and it only happens that one vendor makes something that meets that, that's okay as long as it's not inappropriately steered towards one vendor. If there's a known vendor, there's another option of a lease purchase agreement, which does not require bid letting if certain requirements are satisfied. So if there's a known vendor and everybody's in agreement, that is another option. But generally speaking, you're talking about questions of what's best for the county in terms of what system will work the best. That's an engineer. I mean, I can't tell you that. The sheriff can't tell you that. Mr. Sammons can't tell you that. So having somebody design what is best for the county and then put that out to bid, hopefully would give everybody the comfort that at least some process has been followed to determine what's best. Whether it works out that way or not, like any public improvement, who knows?
You hope so.
Right. That's why the process is there.
All right. Just as someone who's sitting and listening to both sides, and I've heard this been listening to the discussion going for a long time. Basically, our concern is not how much money it's going to cost. That's not a genuine. I don't think it's a general concern, because what we need, we're going to get for the best possible money. I think that the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about, it seems like the Emergency Management Commission, at least a couple of members of that, have hesitancy towards the state system. And if you're writing an RFP, there's only two providers that is naturally going to be steered toward, the one that's not the state system. If it's going to be truly written that either one of these entities could come in and bid and we're actually going to get the best bang for our buck, then I think that we can be on board with it. But where we have hesitancy is where we've I feel like there's been given a lot more credence, and there's a favorite system as opposed to the one that you don't want, okay? And so the state system, it seems like the EMC doesn't want. The Sarah system seems to be the one that is favorable to everybody that I've heard. Why?
First of all, the EMC is not in favor of one or the other as a unit.
Right.
This whole process is a learning curve for everybody. I went with Mark over, me and Chief McGee went over long before the communications committee was ratified, and talked to them about their system. I don't remember who all went. I went to a meeting in Newton regarding the Sarah system. Okay. If you think back to the May meeting, I stood right out here and I told you if I had to pick at that point, I would go with the Sarah system, because I don't trust that this state won't charge a user fee down the road in the event the legislators don't. That's not me saying I absolutely am opposed to that state system. I'm not. If we can get that done considerably cheaper and get the coverage my guys need, I'm all on board for it. Okay. As far as Mark inviting me or Dallas County inviting me over, I've gone to 2 different meetings, one for each system. Okay. I'm not going to go specifically to a unit, another sheriff's office that's using one system or the other, because I'm not going to show favoritism as the chairman here. Okay. It'd be just like if Iowa County, who's going with the Sarah system, if they were to call me and say, hey Russ, come on over and look at our system, bring Mark Brunendijk with you, I would tell them I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to show favoritism one way or another. I'm not going to show a conflict of interest, or what could be a conflict of interest. I'm not going to do that until we decide. If the EMC has not decided we don't like the state system, okay, we have not decided that. Do we have individual members who have decided that? Possibly.
So what's the point of going through the RFP process if the predetermined outcome is already you're going to go with the Sarah system? Why even pay the money to go through the RFP?
We haven't decided that.
Okay, well, it seems like you have.
We have not. Are you basing that off of what Mark's saying?
No,
we have not.
Based off, you said there's already people in there who have already made up their minds.
Individual.
Yes, right. So
I'm not one of them, Mark.
Okay, but you said that you prefer the Sarah system. You're the chair.
No, I said
you said that right here.
In May, we've had that discussion up here. I said if I have to decide at this point, I would go with the Sarah system. Okay. Right. I'm sitting here telling you I have not made up my mind. Back in May, if I had to pick that day, absolutely I would have gone with the Sarah system. Okay.
But the message that sends, do you understand that?
Sure, I understand that. I understand because of the articles
because
that were in the
you're preferring
paper.
one over another. There's only 2 systems, right? And you're preferring one over the other.
There's other, but we anticipate two.
The 2 bids that everybody is looking at so far that we know are going to be the one from Raycom and the state system.
We're anticipating Raycom and Motorola.
And so if you are publicly stating that you prefer one over the other, I think that you as the chair can sway votes on that commission. It doesn't seem like the transparency is there to me, at this point. What guarantees, I guess, do we have for you that this is going to be an open process and a competitive process? You can tailor a RFP towards one individual if that's the way that you want it. I don't want that.
Well, I don't.
What assurances do we have as a board before we say, yeah, we're going to let you bond for?
That's why we have an outside company drawing up the RFPs, and there's 13 voting members on the EMC. I'm certainly not going to be able to make the decision as the chairman. Mark can't make it as the vice chairman.
What does concern me, though, is the Emergency Management Commissioner going out and saying all these things we've dealt with as if it was proven truth. And actually, the word is basically the word right out of Raycom's.
Commissioner or the director?
Director. And that's why I went to Dallas County, because it was said as truth and it came from Raycom. And so I've got all these things that I've back checked and studied from none of them are truths, but we say them as if they are. And they're not.
That needs to be brought up to the director, Mark.
I had notified him, let him know. So,
Well, we've discussed it. We need to make a decision. I mean, we're gonna bond it. I mean, we just want to make sure that it's done right.
I'm okay with bonding it, but I want it to be a competitive playing field. I want it to be fair to everybody involved. I don't want it just to be geared towards one entity that you prefer. If there's concerns, serious concerns about why one provider can't provide it over another, I need to hear that, okay? But if we're going to go through the process 3 months, and this is supposed to be an unsafe system that we have currently, okay? That's why we're going to another one. Why not fast track that as fast as we can?
We want to make a good decision. We want to keep the process moving in order for Jamie, if it's got to be done through budgetary things, to get that done by February. We could call a meeting tonight and say, okay, let's all three of us vote. But we want to have all the facts before you. I think we need the RFP. We need Eller's advice first before a decision can be made.
Or advice from the county's bond council if the county decides it's willing to issue and you've got other bond council that you use.
Another thing that I may have some concern over, how many of the RFPs that Eller has actually written have been awarded to Raycom and how many to Motorola?
I don't have any idea.
Mark, I will say that the question was asked at Elder in a meeting, and it was a public meeting, was, would you support Raycom versus Sarah more than the other? And they said absolutely not. That they don't have a say, they're not users, this is their job. They build this stuff, it goes out, and people bid on it. And that's just it. We're doing an RFP. You guys are more than welcome to look at the RFP before it's sent out. Mr. Gornak, Law of Access, he's part of the committee that kind of decides the factors that go with it.
Do you have those numbers though? Do you know how many RFPs in the state of Iowa that Eller has written that have gone to Raycom as opposed to the Motorola system?
I do not.
I'd say most. I would say most of them.
Well,
No, I just want to make sure, I mean, we need something. Dallas County said they took 3 years. So, I mean, this is going to take some good time. I mean, do it right. But, yeah, my concern is that I hope everything is evaluated and double checked. The people deserve to have an open and honest value of what they're going to pay for. So I guess at the proper time, they're going to have to come back and prove to us they did. That's what it comes down to.
We're willing to bond. I think that there's a general consensus here that we're willing to bond for the system that you need. We have questions as to the integrity of the process, and we want to make sure that that's fine. I guess in a
Right,
nutshell,
and that's why you have a member on that commission, so we understand that. And on behalf of the commission, we thank you.
we need that in a motion in the minutes. Probably. Straw poll.
Straw poll.
Wait, straw polls don't mean anything.
That's right.
Jeff has a question.
Jeff?
Just a couple questions, and maybe Jamie can answer. Because the board does have several things with a wind tower turbine tip next year. So, whether they're going to need to know, whether it's 2 million or 5 million, because there are several plans in the process next year. And so the other thing is I talked to the board, one board is, in sizing this, the board's also going to want to know what's the tax impact to the property owners. Is there any money coming at all from E911 surcharges, or is it all coming from that?
It probably, that's the question kind of something.
We need to know how much you can support with E911 surcharge, so so that we can figure out what that amount is, the board knows what it is. So that's really two things that we need to get to the board is how much you can support with the surcharge. And then if you can find out that, are you looking at this calendar year to know what RFP?
Probably next
We're talking about
calendar year.
December-ish.
So you're not going to go back to that.
Five numbers, you know, for the first year.
So, I mean, we need to talk about that with your road projects, whether you want to pull more up in this calendar year because there's, you know, that winter tip next year. So that's the discussion we need to know. If it's 2 million or 5 or 7 or 8 million, it makes a lot of difference on the bank allocation in 2018.
And part of what Jeff is saying is, you may remember I mentioned earlier that you can do some juggling of which calendar year you've got projects and financings in order to try to keep within the 10 million each year. What Jeff is saying is if you're not going to know until the end of this year or beginning of next year how much next year's bond issue might be if you go that route for E911, if you've got some projects you know are coming up next year, one strategy is sometimes to accelerate those into this calendar year so that the financing is done in calendar year 17 to free up more bonding capacity within the 10 million bank qualification limit in the next year.
That's what Jefferson.
Yep, that's right. I was trying to repeat that. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys, appreciate you taking time.
Did we get through everything we skipped? Okay.
Let's go back to number 8.
We're number 8, Iowa State Patrol Presence in County Lieutenant Jalis?
Jalis.
Jalis,
Jalis, okay,
I'm
the
sorry.
Culvers.
Okay.
Not today yet, but
I called Lieutenant Jalis. I was curious how much the Iowa State Patrol actually does in our county. It's kind of let in the influence of basically stay on state highways. So I just wanted the people to know actually what they do. So I got in contact with Mr. Jalis. That's made enough phone calls. I found out the gentleman to talk to.
you guys are stuck with me for a little bit, so. First off, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk. My name is Lieutenant Dean Jalis. I'm the district commander out of the Mount Pleasant District Office in Mount Pleasant. We cover 11 counties in southeast Iowa. Mahaska County is one of those counties that we service in our district. So it's my understanding from when you called me that there was a little bit of miscommunication, maybe some misunderstanding about what it is the Iowa State Patrol does, not only within Mahaska County, but within the city limits and such also. I can certainly understand a misunderstanding or a misconception in that way, really for a couple of reasons. Our main mission obviously is traffic safety. Our goal is to make sure the roads are safe. We cover the accidents, especially the real serious ones. We want to make sure everybody sitting in this room gets home safe today along with you guys. And when the public talks about us, most of the time they're talking about when I got stopped by a trooper and what it cost them. I mean, that's generally what the focus is. The other reason I can understand a misconception is, as the Iowa State Patrol, we are really fairly poor at patting ourselves on the back. We just kind of do what we do it silently, and we go back to our duties, we go what we're doing. Our mission is law enforcement, and that's just what we do. We see no reason to pat ourselves on the back or really broadcast what it is we do. Probably a downfall on our part, because we really probably need to let everybody know what it is that we do. So really I appreciate the opportunity to come up and really let you guys know, let the citizens know of the county and within all the cities what it is that the Iowa State Patrol really does day in and day out and really behind the scenes. So really I want to start off by saying, you know, the mission that the Iowa State Patrol has is going to be different than what the mission the Sheriff's Department has. It's going to be different than the mission of what the police departments have. That doesn't necessarily mean that we just do our own thing. Up here in Mahaska County, within the cities and counties, we really all work extremely well together. It's a really good working relationship, and I know for us, we could not complete our mission without their support. And I certainly won't speak for them, but I think the majority of law enforcement agencies just don't have enough people to do absolutely everything themselves. So we really rely on each other to help each other out. whether it's, you know, a bad wreck out on a highway. You know, Oskaloosa PD is happy to come out and help us out. Sheriff's Office happy to help us out. And we really rely on that. And vice versa. If they need help, we'll be happy to go anywhere we need to help them out. So what I did is I went through and I wanted to pull some statistics to really show what it is that we've done within the county. So I went back to January 2015, and so I have all the 2015 data. Unfortunately, in 2016, we moved to a different system, so all the data is there, but there was nothing built in to pull the data out. So I can't really go into what we did in 16. It's all there, but we just can't pull it. So we went back to the other system in 17. So I have all of 15 and the first half of 17. And I'll just kind of let you guys know what it is that we did within the county. I think it is important for everybody to know that. So within a year and a half's time, the Iowa State Patrol assisted on 23 separate domestic calls. That could be anything from us being on our way, and if city or county gets there first, they may call us off. It could be that the county or city gets there and they need us to continue, and we will continue to wherever it's at, and we'll help them out. Obviously, those are fairly volatile situations. So the more officers you have, obviously the safer it is for everybody. And there's times where we may be the closest car. So we'll get there first, and we'll try to keep things calmed down and tamed down until backup arrives. Now, generally, domestic is not something that we're going to cover. We will generally turn that over to the city or county if we are the first ones there, because that's really not our mission. Our mission is more traffic safety, but we're happy to go and help out. And like I said, if we're the closest one, we're the closest one. We're not going to wait for somebody else to get there if somebody has a potential of getting hurt. We're going to get there and get that threat stopped and make everything safe and figure it all out after that. Through the year and a half, we were involved in 12 disturbance or fight calls, I guess you could call it. It could be anything from a large fight to a disorderly type event, parties, get called to parties. So a little bit different than a domestic call, but we were involved in 12 of them over the year and a half. 12 pursuits, chases as they're commonly known as, and that could be ones that we start, county starts, city starts. It could be from other counties coming into the county, whatever it may be. We're involved in 12 of those. Now generally a pursuit's not going to stay on a highway. They're going to go into gravel roads, cornfields, bean fields, pastures, wooded areas. It's not uncommon for them to bail on foot and try and run from us. So those are interesting calls. Through that year and a half, we've been involved in 11 suspicious activity calls. That could be anything from somebody calling in and say, hey, this car just doesn't seem right in this area. It just doesn't seem like it's supposed to be there. As opposed to, you know, it could be somebody in town saying, hey, somebody's knocking on my door. I don't know who it is. There shouldn't be anybody here, whatever the case may be. Just suspicious activity calls where somebody calls in and says, again, hey, something just does not seem right here. And again, it could be we're the closest car there. It could be the city's close there, county's there, it doesn't matter. When you're dealing with a suspicious activity call, you don't really know what you're getting into. So the more help you can have there, the safer it's going to be for everybody. We were involved in 7 assault calls, and those would be assaults that don't necessarily meet the domestic assault criteria. It could be a fight between a couple people, somebody gets hit, whatever the case may be. You don't know what you're getting into, so whoever's close obviously responds to the call until we can get it figured out. We assisted on 6 burglary calls. Those are, you know, pretty common sense. It doesn't necessarily mean we made it to each burglary, but it could be, you know, burglary call came out. Obviously, again, you don't know what you're getting into. The more help you have, the better off it is. So everybody goes until somebody gets there and figures it out. It could be they call us off, whatever the case may be. It might be the other way. We may be the first ones there. We might be the closest one. So 6 medical calls. That could be anything from we hear a ambulance dispatched to a house or business or something. We'll go assist them, or to call a suicidal person. You know, do a welfare check. This person's claiming suicidal, doing suicidal text, whatever it may be. where we'll go and offer assistance at those calls. And in numerous cases, we end up calling out negotiators and such for those calls. I was able to track down 4 wanted suspects, and when I go into those, it's more of, you know, the city or county will call us, say, hey, we got a warrant for such and such. We're going to go to the house and try and get them. This does not include the warrants that we will encounter on a traffic stop. This is, hey, this person's in this house. We found out he has a warrant for us. Will you come with us to see if we can go grab him? So we've been on 3 alarm calls, much like burglary calls, but 3 separate alarm calls. Could be somebody goes into a bank early, forgets to punch out their code or something, the alarm goes off. We've been involved in 2 shots fired, or somebody might call and say, hey, such and such has a gun. We've assisted with a couple of those within the counties or cities. And I should say I didn't separate these out to which ones happened in the county and which ones happened in the city. Whether it's in the city of Bosque or, you know, New Sharon, Fremont, Eddyville, doesn't matter. These are total within the county limits. We've assisted the USDA on 2 separate occasions for different inspections. We offer protection to the inspectors as they go in. We've done 2 DNR enforcement assists. Those are the fish and game officers, conservation officers. We'll go and assist them occasionally. We've been involved in 1 missing persons. We've assisted the Department of Criminal Investigation at a crime scene within Mahaska County. And at one point, Oskaloosa PD called us. They were going to be busy executing a search warrant. It was going to tie up all their people. So they asked if we had anybody available that could come in the city limits and take calls. So I think we sent 2 cars within the city limits, and we took their general calls and everything until they got their warrant cleared up and were able to get back to covering the city. So it's just a small snapshot of the things we do. To be honest with you, I was really quite surprised also at the numbers of everything we do. And this is just one of the 11 counties that we cover. So it was actually a good little drill for myself also to see what it is that our troops are doing and everything we can do to assist the counties and cities. So
Appreciate it.
that's about all I got. If you guys have any questions.
Basically, I try to work with each other and do the best you can for everybody.
Everybody's got to help each other. We can't do it alone. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Generous.
Are we on 11?
Consider ongoing relationship with Paul Groove and Associates for HR needs. I've talked with most of the department heads about this. Some of them only have them in, you know, their department. Some of them have them and 1 other employee under them, and they don't seem to have a whole lot of HR needs. But the ones that have multiple employees, I guess, are the ones that seem to be the most interested in having HR support. I've talked with Sue as well, and she has, how many staff? You have 4 staff? 4 staff under her, and they're charged with doing a lot of the HR needs. If there is HR that's done, it's generally their office or us if we're doing hiring type of stuff. And I guess the greatest benefit to having this would be to have uniform policies and enforced across the county. Anybody who's called Mahaska County, including conservation, the Department of, or the road department, the DOT department down there, motor vehicle, all those offices seem to be implementing different policy. And so to have all that uniform and to get training to the department heads and those kind of things, it seems to be a need that most of the department heads support. Some of them are they don't care either way or the other because they don't have any need for it. But the ones that have the most employees under them, I guess that's where it comes from. I talked to him and he said that he would be willing to do an ongoing support for $1,500 a month. I think that's what he quoted us before. That's what he does it for other counties as well. He provides service to many different counties. His firm, him, down in Appaloosa County, they do that. They use him to negotiate union contracts. They use him to negotiate other contracts, as well as discipline for employees and hiring and all those kind of things, as well as a policy advisor. And so I guess I see some support from it through the department heads. You guys have any feedback on it at all that you want to report?
I haven't heard anything back. Is this $1,500 a month we locked into a contract, or is it just
It's just ongoing support.
ongoing, and if we
Yeah.
decide we don't want them, we can terminate?
Yep.
Sort of, is that how it's set up?
Yep, yep, we did figure through the process that there are some services that we could use Heartland for, and we continue to do that. I guess the main, the old MO of doing business was that we would just, if we had an issue, we would contact the attorneys at Eilers and we'd handle it on a per occasion basis. He does that. However, if you have multiple occasions, it's going to cost more than an ongoing support. I think if we get things to where the policies are implemented uniformly throughout the county, I think that we could probably, after everybody's trained and everything, we could probably get by with just minimum maintenance at that point. But I think to get there, it's going to take a little bit of intensive up the front loading of the, implementing the policies and training the department heads to all be on the same page.
So we do the $1,500 a month. It's a monthly contract. It's not, what do we think, 3 months, 6 months? And everybody on the same page.
How long to do it?
And get everybody on the same page to where,
I don't know a time frame, I guess. Depends on us, I think. I think how quickly we implement everything is less on him and more on us. We have 100 employees and, different department heads to get the training done and all that kind of stuff. And he works with other counties too, so I think that he would be here one day a month, no matter what, to help with, ask, department heads had any questions for him or anything like that. And he's always available by email and telephone 24 hours a day pretty much. So if we have a situation, he'll help with that as well. He's already done a little bit of that. I don't know how long. I would say no longer than a year on a full-time type of a basis, but I wouldn't want to be able to speak to if we could be done in 6 months or not. Kind of just depends on us. Your guess is as good as mine.
Cheaper than hiring a full-time person.
It is.
For a company of 100 people probably should have some HR.
We did some preliminary numbers down at the Area 15 Regional Policy Council down in Ottumwa about all 6 of the counties that are engaged in that all need HR. They all have HR needs. And we looked at how much it would cost each county, and we were looking at close to $30,000.
Wow.
So this, even if we kept him on, I think it's $18,000 a year.
Yep.
You can't hire an HR person for that, not even a part-time HR person for that. So I think get us where we need to be, and where the auditor's office feel comfortable with doing the majority of it at that point. I guess I consider the ongoing relationship, make a motion that we can continue our services with PJ Group and Associates for our HR needs ongoing until such time that we determine that we
don't need the services anymore.
Ordered.
Discussion?
Do we want to put that ongoing, or we want to revisit this in a year?
Well, it's ongoing, but you can revisit it in
Okay.
6 months
We
if
can
you want.
terminate.
That's-
Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider variance request for 2621 Luminary Lane.
I'll give the floor to this Chase Patrician. He built a house south of town by the Party Barn, just a little southeast of that, and he's wanting to build a garage off of the house. And I'll let him proceed. He contacted me about this.
Before we started the house, we had a layout. I had the county supervisor and the waste management guy out
You
there.
had the engineer. Not supervisor.
Sorry.
We
And
weren't
Engineer
there.
and the sanitarian.
We weren't there. Okay.
The
and just
sanitarian.
had a layout, about 8 stakes, 4 for the house, 4 for the shop, to get everything squared away and started. They said that was fine, and then put up the house, and then put the pad out, and then the engineer stopped over and said it wasn't okay. So I'm just getting a variance that would work.
I guess I'd talk to Dave. Oh, here he comes.
First, there were no stakes for the shop. The shop was going to be cut in, that's why we built a driveway to the east, as per your request. You have no permit request for the shop. We have never gotten a building permit request for the shop. And you also use the driveway on the south, which was never part of the driveway agreement. So you have a driveway without a permit on the south side. You were using that to build a house, which we allowed. But there was never any talk about that building being there. Eric will back my story up if you ever want to ask him about it. The building was going to be cut into the hillside facing to the northeast, because that's where we built the driveway over to the east of the property. Now, I understand that maybe it's not what he wants to do now, and I have no qualms about that. We still need to get a permit for the building. We don't even have a permit to have a variance.
I'm new to this. I'm a UPS driver. I don't know all the.
And that's all we had to, if someone would come in there and say, hey, we don't even have a permit for this. And I was trying to explain it to everybody that we've been enforcing the 100-foot setback because of what it does for snow traps, makes it dangerous when it was actually, yours is very close to the roadway. Very, about 50 feet away, I believe, is where you were looking at it, which is very close, and in case someone were to run off the road, that's a very dangerous situation. Plus, we were looking at the drainage swale to take that water around your house to the south into the east. That's why I'm kind of concerned that you were going to build it up there, because now it runs all the water toward the house and down that driveway. But we did argue with you on it, and I know you talked to Eric about it a couple times, and he said the same thing that we will work with you, but we have to make sure that it fits within the guidelines. That's all I'm saying on it. I mean, we'll work with you.
Well, I thought you were out there and said no, so then I thought I had to come up in front of these
Well,
gentlemen.
but you have to, to have a variance, you gotta have a permit.
See, and I didn't know that. I'm new to all this. I have no idea.
Well, part of it is because I think someone else, your builder, that got your initial permits. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so, part of that, I wish you would just call and say, hey, do this. And we would have eliminated a lot of this a long time ago.
Well, again, I don't know why you didn't
And I-
tell me this prior than being
But
here.
we've done that for,
Again, I have no idea.
okay.
Then you fill out a request for a building, right?
So that we
Get
can
the
meet
form,
the 100-foot setback.
fill it out,
Because that's where it's at,
And then-
and then that's simple from there.
and then come back and request a variance.
You have to go to the secondary roads department to fill out a
Yep,
form.
you gotta fill out the form, then I
work with them to make sure it's needed and everything else, and then.
Well, I mean, just to where the aspect of where everything's at, it's, I mean, like, it's 50 feet. So, I mean, is that even okay?
I'm not gonna quite take his word for it.
It's gonna have to meet the 100-foot setback.
I've seen some buildings
But that's-
that aren't 100-foot setback, never got permits, Dave.
Not lately.
I can show you a new one that just built north of Oskaloosa.
There's one right across the road from where Durst lives.
Where's one north of town?
Okay, northeast of KBOE. There's a new pole barn went up there behind that brick house, and I'll guarantee you it's not 100 foot off the road.
Yeah, it is, we measured it.
Huh?
We measured it, because he got a permit for that, he had to be 100 foot.
I'm looking 100
It's
foot
from the
to
center
me.
line of the road. Or 30 feet from the right of way, which is ever further. That's what's in the code.
Sits in there with a 16-foot trailer and a pickup, and it almost touches the right of way from that building. So, there's one built out by Dursky's that's right along the road. That was built last year.
You know, some people don't come in for permits either.
That's right.
Find out about them after they're built. Because there hasn't been much done for zoning over the years, and we're just trying to get consistency. We've done it with other buildings that have been in there. We're trying to be consistent.
Where's the one you were talking about north of town?
Anyway.
Where's the one you were talking about north of town?
Well, there's one catty corner from KBOE, and then there's one out on Carbonado Road. But
In Carbonado Road, you're talking about that garage. Where were they gonna build a garage?
100 foot off the road, that's what you're telling me.
We've done variances for those that had no alternatives. That's what the variance procedure's for. And so we had one on 290 that we did a variance for because there was no place to put it because of the topography of the soil. So we are consistent. Betty, you gonna come in this morning?
Yeah.
Or even if you have to do it after work, I'll wait up there for you. We'll just and figure out what to do then, okay? So that's all I wanna do.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Chase.
Thanks.
Okay, Dave, payroll change for secondary road.
I'm requesting this from Mike Broadwell. He has done an outstanding job for us. He's picked up some of the work that Scott Skippers used to do when he was employed with us. So he's added on more duties to what he's doing. Plus he has to carry a lot of the design and the construction inspection. So without Scott, we never, there was quite a bit of overlap there. So we had more time for the guys, but here we're two and we're still doing fine. And he just picked up more work, plus he subs for Ed if Ed's gone as maintenance superintendent. And he has to do that more because sometimes Scott would do it instead of Mike. So he's picked up those extra duties. And he does very good work and he's knowledgeable in the construction field. He does a great job with contract administration. He and Reed work well together to do that. Even with all the changes where they're looking at going to engineering field manual and the different dock management systems, which is going to be a lot more on computer stuff. The state's mandating that here so that we become basically all the same across the state. So he's been picking that up and we've been looking at different designs and different ideas to try to fix some of these roads without spending more money than we can afford to spend. Just kind of like the TIF there, the local money that we have, we added that in our budget as of last year because we didn't know it was going to be so on the bonding thing. That might be an effect that it comes out of there too, because we had that tied into projects, especially next year. But Mike does an exceptional job, and this wage is slightly above the average, but most people have more people sitting in the engineering staff. and they don't use them as superintendents like we do, make them superintendents. So I believe that this would be a fair and equitable salary adjustment to Mike. He's done a good job and he's there all the time. He rarely misses.
What's your proposal?
He is currently at $27.01. I'm looking at putting him at $28 an hour, which is minor for what he does.
I agree with that.
Yeah, he does it.
Yeah.
Like you said, he does a great job.
And he knows the history, he knows it.
Mhm.
No, I agree.
He's, you know, and I wouldn't even be against it next year bumping him another one just because of what he does.
I make a motion to approve the payroll change to $28 for Mike Rodwell.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to increase Mike Rodwell from $27.01 to $28 an hour, effective.
At effective 8/3, which would be,
Next pay period,
or excuse me,
or whenever.
8/14, which is the start of the next pay period.
Okay.
Effective 8/14. Is that part of your motion? Good.
Yep.
Accepted.
Excuse me. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Do you have that? And we can get it signed so I can take it back to him.
What else we got?
Public comments.
Anybody else?
Public comments. Second chance for public comments. Okay, public comments.
Nobody does, Mark. We went to that groundbreaking Thursday evening. I want to pass along, Dave said, one of their thanks to everyone who voted for and gave them the money to make it happen, or it wouldn't be possible. So I just want to share with the public that
Okay.
something's happening because the people willing to spend their money to.
Has there been anything in the newspaper about that?
Yeah, it was in the paper.
The groundbreaking?
I saw it, yeah, I think so.
But I just thought, just to the people who made it happen.
Huh?
You missed our deadline. It's in today's paper.
Okay.
Okay.
You had it in the paper, it was gonna happen,
Yes.
so
Our deadline is 6 o'clock most of the time.
Oh.
So Thursday night at 6.
This happened at 6:30.
Until Monday,
Okay.
right?
Edited Friday.
okay,
He doesn't print. Except on August.
thank you.
Okay.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
That's yours, this is mine.
Here.